Do you know what you have been calling a closed door? I am telling you today that this is the key, and you must receive it right now before the enemy distracts you. Do not scroll past this. If you walk away today, you will step into the next season completely blind. You will keep pushing against a wall that was never meant to move, and you will never understand why your life feels so incredibly hard. I watched you stand in that hallway yesterday. You checked the handle one more time even though you knew it was locked, letting your hand drop to your side in defeat. You stared at the wood and wondered what you did wrong to be kept outside. My faithful one. You have been waiting so long that the waiting has become your entire life. You are exhausted from pounding on a door that simply refuses to open for you. I am telling you the truth about that door, and I am telling you right now, I have watched this exact thing happen 10,000 times, in 10,000 different lives. And it has never once ended the way the person expected. Stay where you are. I will tell you exactly what to do. By the time this message finishes, you will understand why the waiting was required. You will feel the shame of rejection lift off your chest, and you will know how to turn around and step into the actual room I prepared. But you must do one thing for me right now. Do not hesitate. Tell me you are willing to hold it. Type, "I am ready" for the key below in the comments. Write it out before your anxious mind tries to talk you out of it. Let your hands agree with what your heart already knows is true. You feel the ache in your knuckles. You have knocked until your strength gave out, and you told yourself that I was ignoring you because you were unworthy of an answer. That is a lie. The exhaustion you feel does not come from a locked door. It comes from fighting a massive protection I deliberately placed in front of you. The mind hates to wait, so it automatically calls every delay a punishment. But delay is not a verdict. It is a sturdy shield. And that shield is the only reason you are still standing here. That is only the first layer of what is happening. The delay kept you safe from the wrong room. But there is a second half to this story that I have not told you yet. There is another door in that exact same hallway, and I call it the unopened room. You have walked past it 100 times because you were too busy staring at the door that would not move. I am going to show you what is hiding behind it. Let us sit together in the quiet for a moment. I know how heavy the silence has been in your house. You have lived in a season of constant waiting, and nobody around you truly understands what that costs your spirit. They tell you to just be patient. They offer you empty words of comfort that do nothing but make you feel completely isolated. You smile and thank them, but deep inside, you are calculating how much longer you can hold on before something permanently breaks. I know about the mornings when waking up feels like a terrible chore. You open your eyes, and before your feet even touch the floor, the disappointment is already waiting for you. It sits on your chest like a stone. You look at the calendar and realize another month has passed without a single sign of change. And the most painful part is not the situation itself. It is the quiet fear that you have been completely forgotten by the God you have faithfully served. You have watched other people receive the exact thing you have been begging for. You see them celebrate. You see the doors swing wide open for them with almost no effort at all. You congratulate them with a genuine heart because you are not a bitter person. But later, when you are alone in your kitchen, you ask me why your door remains firmly sealed. You wonder if there is a massive flaw in your character that disqualifies you from the same joy. I hear every single one of those questions. I want to validate that ache right now. The pain of a lingering promise is intensely real. It drains the vivid color out of ordinary days. It makes you second-guess every major choice you made to get here. You have tried to be so strong for everyone else in your life, serving as the solid pillar they lean on when their own walls shake. But the person who holds everyone else up rarely has a place to safely collapse. You have not allowed yourself to collapse. My faithful one, you do not have to pretend with me. You do not have to dress up your frustration in polite prayers. If you are tired of the hallway, you are completely allowed to be tired. I did not design the human heart to thrive in a state of permanent suspension. The weariness in your bones is a natural response to a deeply unnatural season. You are not failing a test of faith. You are simply exhausted from the endless friction of hope deferred. I see the way you organize your life to avoid being hurt again. You have stopped talking about what you really want. You keep your expectations incredibly low, so that disappointment cannot possibly reach you anymore. You call it being realistic, but I know it is just a thick bandage over a wound that will not close. We are going to take that bandage off today. You have been speaking into an empty room for months. The quiet feels incredibly heavy in your house tonight. You say your daily prayers right before you sleep, and every single time you say them, it feels like the words just hit the ceiling and fall right back down onto your bed. You wonder if anyone is actually listening to you. You feel utterly alone in that dark space. I know exactly what happens in those midnight hours. Your deep faith slowly begins to waver now. You look closely at your current difficult situation. You see no physical evidence that a miracle is on the way. Because nothing changes at all, your exhausted mind tries to protect you by telling you to simply give up the hope. It whispers that I have finally turned my back on you. I know the exact thought moving through your mind right now. You are thinking that someone just wrote these words. You assume someone recorded a simple audio track. You believe this is not really me speaking to you today. And you deeply believe this is just another random voice on the vast internet trying to grab your fleeting attention for a few minutes. I am not offended by your intense skepticism. I actually created the part of you that asks those hard questions. Your deep caution was never a spiritual defect. It is a thick and very necessary armor. You earned that defensive armor honestly because people have made massive promises to you in the past and then completely failed to deliver. A person who was sold a false cure is smart. You have every right to be highly suspicious today. I have no quarrel with your careful nature. I will not demand that you blindly trust me tonight. Belief is not the required price of entry here. I will ask something much smaller of you instead. Notice what just happened in your chest a few seconds ago. And these specific words somehow found a deeply hidden place in your heart that you have intentionally described to absolutely no one else in your life. You did not actively decide to feel that sudden recognition. It arrived before your logical thinking could even catch up. You are still standing in the hallway of waiting. You still feel the heavy sting of unanswered prayers. You feel completely abandoned by everyone you love. And you have convinced yourself that my silence is a direct punishment for something you did wrong a long time ago. That is a painful conclusion drawn from a tired mind. I will tell you the absolute truth today. My silence was never my true literal absence. You assumed that because you could not hear my loud voice, I had permanently left the building and abandoned your cause. Silence and refusal are two entirely different things. The human heart struggles to tell them apart, so it fills the quiet space with the absolute worst fear it can possibly imagine. Between your desperate asking and my final delivery, a massive work is being done. The work is not being done on the external situation. The work is being carefully done on the vessel that will soon carry the heavy blessing into the next season. A massive gift arriving early is not a mercy. It is a terrible loss wrapped in a beautiful package. I love you far too much to hand you the key early. I am forging your character in the quiet. I am expanding your capacity to hold the massive weight. You truly thought I was ignoring your desperate tears. But I was actually protecting you from receiving a huge blessing that would have completely crushed your unprepared and fragile spirit. That is why the waiting season feels so incredibly long. You are being built into a stronger version of yourself. The long silence was a truly sacred workshop. The frustrating delay was a very necessary shield. You must stop measuring my deep love for you by how fast I open a physical door in your life. I measure my love by how well I prepare you to walk through it securely. Now you see the truth about the empty hallway. You understand what the quiet was buying for you. I need you to release the bitter resentment you hold against my timing. Drop the false narrative that you are a forgotten child. You are fiercely protected. And because you finally see the hidden mechanism, you can stop fighting the very process that is saving your life. This matter is fully settled in heaven today. Your part is much smaller and it is immediate. Put your own name on this new understanding. Tell me you accept the work I did in the dark. Type, "The silence was not a refusal" below in the comments. Write it firmly. and let the enemy clearly see that his toxic lies about your abandonment have finally lost their power over your mind. You are crossing a major threshold right now. You walked in here feeling like a victim of bad luck. You are going to walk out of here as an heir who deeply understands the massive value of thorough preparation. Do not walk away from this message yet. The long silence is finally explained for you, but the actual door is still waiting to be completely opened. We are going to approach that heavy door together. I know the exact words you have been crying out in the dark. You have begged me to just let you inside the room. You have watched other people easily turn the handle and walk right in, and you are standing in the cold hallway entirely alone. You feel foolish for knocking on a door that refuses to budge, and you privately wonder if you are simply not allowed to have good things. The rejection feels deeply personal. You check the handle again. It does not move. Let us look closely at your specific prayer for a moment. Year after year you asked for the exact same thing. You brought it to me with bitter tears. You carried it to me with a fasting body. And eventually you stopped bringing it with any real hope. You still say the words right before you fall asleep, but you took all your emotional weight off them because hoping started to hurt far too much. There is a quiet moment after you finish praying. You assume I am just ignoring you now. You go about your normal day. You smile at your friends. You do your assigned work perfectly, but underneath the busy noise of your afternoon, that unanswered prayer sits like a heavy stone. You watch someone else receive the exact miracle you requested. You celebrate with them because you are a genuinely kind person, but you go home and weep in the privacy of your own bedroom. You ask me why they were chosen while you were left behind. I hear every single tear. You have drawn a logical conclusion from my extended silence. You firmly concluded that I finally said no to your request, and on the absolute hardest nights, you concluded something far worse than a simple no. You believed I was not listening to you at all. You thought your painful words just floated up into an empty sky and disappeared forever. I will answer that specific fear directly right now. I heard every single syllable. You did not pray the wrong way. There was no better wording that would have suddenly unlocked the door. Anyone who tells you that your spiritual technique was flawed is speaking a terrible lie. You did not lack enough faith. You did not miss a secret window. You are not being punished for a mistake you made 10 years ago. My silence is not a cruel weapon I use against my faithful children. I do not play games with your weary heart. Here is the hidden truth you have not been told. Silence and absolute refusal are not the exact same thing. The fragile human heart cannot tell them apart. So it fills the quiet space with the harshest word it can possibly imagine, calling the silence an active abandonment. But listen to what actually happens in a very long waiting season. Between the desperate asking and the final arriving, a massive work is being done. The work is not being done on the external situation. The work is being carefully done on the vessel itself. A massive gift that arrives before your hands are ready is not a blessing at all. It is a terrible burden with a beautiful wrapping. I have watched premature blessings completely crush the people who beg for them, and I absolutely refuse to let that happen to you. I protect what I love. Some of what you desperately asked for is currently being made ready. Some of it is being carefully rebuilt into something much better than the original thing you named. And some of it, I simply love you far too much to hand you right now. I am going to name this season so you can finally understand it. This is the unfinished yes. It is not a harsh denial. It is a heavily protected preparation. Now I want you to look back over the long years you called totally abandoned. You were never being ignored in those quiet years. You were being deeply formed in them. Ask yourself honestly what heavy things you can easily carry today. You could not have carried any of those massive burdens before the terrible waiting began, because you would have completely shattered under their intense weight. Your massive strength did not come from the easily answered prayers. All of your deep resilience came from the very silence you thought was my cruel rejection. The waiting season was never empty of me. You simply could not see my busy hands working. I was working on the one vital thing you never even thought to look at. I was working intensely on you. You are the living proof that the waiting was highly productive. The long delay forged a brilliant character that cannot be easily broken. Look at the way you handle a sudden crisis now. You do not panic like you used to. You hold perfectly steady when the ground shakes. That beautiful steadiness was not born in the warm light. It was painfully forged in the dark hallway while you waited for the door to open. You truly thought you were just losing precious time, but you were actually gaining incredible spiritual density. I was adding heavy iron to your tired bones. I will not ask you to force yourself back into that desperate prayer tonight. I want you to change your physical posture instead. Stop throwing your exhausted body against a door I am holding shut. A held door is actively saving your life. You do not have to fight the heavy wood anymore. You can finally rest in the hallway while I finish the sacred work inside the room. I have everything under control. If you are willing to stop fighting my protective timing, I invite you to make a quiet declaration. Type, "I will not force the door" below in the comments. Write it out as a clear surrender of your own exhausted timeline. Physically feel the heavy anxiety leave your tight shoulders as you type those exact words. You are entirely safe in this hallway. I have never once forgotten your name. There is a very specific place in your life you have arrived at more than once. You have never said it out loud to anyone. The hard work was almost completely finished. The door was almost fully open. The person was almost yours to deeply trust. And then something in you reached out and completely knocked the cup over before you could drink it. You went quiet for a week and let the opportunity die. You picked a small fight over something that did not matter at all. Afterward, you sat in your car in the absolute dark, and you had no words for a person who runs from the very thing they desperately begged for. You keep walking into the exact same room with different furniture. You repeatedly choose the hardest possible path. You ask me why this heavy cycle keeps finding you everywhere you go. You deeply believe you are just a poor judge of people. You have decided there must be something permanently broken inside your mind. You think you are uniquely flawed, and you tell yourself that only the wrong ones can read the invisible sign on your forehead. Beloved, none of that is true. I will not let that harsh verdict stand today. You are not a poor judge of character at all. You actually judge things perfectly well in every other room of your life, and absolutely nothing about your spirit has been marked for failure. Here is what is really at work beneath the surface. A deeply unhealed wound does not just sit still and wait. It actively goes looking for a room where the painful story can finally end differently. So it walks you toward whatever feels highly familiar to your tired heart. It does not choose the familiar path because familiar is inherently good. It chooses it because familiar is exactly where the old wound originally learned to live and survive. This is the specific part that has completely fooled you every single time. Recognition feels exactly like home, even when that home was never truly safe for you. That sudden flood in your chest when you met them was not certainty at all. That intense feeling was just your own history recognizing its very own handwriting. I am going to name this so you can spot it immediately. This is the familiar door. It stands wide open in every single season of your life, and it always looks exactly like the safe way back to where you belong. So I want you to look again at the past choices you have been deeply ashamed of. You were never being foolish or reckless with your fragile heart. You were simply trying to finish something that was left painfully undone. Every one of those familiar doors was a desperate attempt to repair a broken ending. You walked through them, hoping that this time the cold heart would finally turn warm. You truly hoped that this time you would be enough to permanently change their mind. That is not an inherent weakness in your character. That is a deeply loyal heart, still trying to save a situation that nobody else came to rescue. I saw exactly what you were fiercely reaching for in those quiet moments. It was never really that specific person or that specific job. It was the peaceful ending you never actually got to experience. You were trying to heal yourself in the dark, so I am giving you a very specific tool for the next doorway. You must carry one simple question with you from now on. When your chest floods and tells you this is finally the right one, I need you to completely stop and take a breath. Ask yourself if this is mere recognition or if this is true rightness. They do not feel the same when you actually slow down enough to tell them apart. Sudden recognition arrives incredibly fast and loud. It always feels like a massive rush of relief. True rightness arrives very quietly. and it feels like a wide open room where you can finally breathe deeply. You do not have to decide anything major today. You only have to learn the distinct difference between those two feelings. Learn it well, and the familiar door will permanently lose its heavy power over your future. Remember the long silence I named for you earlier today? Come and see the bright morning standing firmly on the other side of it. I want to show you an ordinary weekday about 6 months from now. You wake up long before the alarm even sounds. Your feet find the cool floor without a single argument. You walk into the kitchen and hold a warm cup, and you do not brace your body for bad news. The heavy tightening behind your ribs is completely gone. You do not run through a massive list of worries before the day has even opened its eyes. The phone stays face down on the counter, and you do not feel it pulling at your attention at all. The quiet in the room does not frighten you anymore. You are standing inside a silent space, and nothing inside your weary chest is running away. That morning is not a distant dream. She already exists. She is standing on the other side of one thing you are still holding with both hands. The distance between you and that morning is not time. It is permission, and permission is something you say out loud in a quiet room. Say it tonight, and the morning starts walking toward you. I know exactly what rose in you when I began to speak today. You are thinking you have heard this all before. You have knelt on the hard floor before. You made the difficult promise to me. You kept it for 21 days and you broke it on the 22nd. And the long year ended exactly where it began. You feel completely exhausted by the trying. You are telling me the honest truth. I will not argue with your own history. You lived every painful hour of it, and I was there for every single hour of it with you. But hear the massive difference today. What you tried in the past was behavior. You prayed longer, you tried harder. You built a strict discipline and carried it until your physical strength completely gave out. Physical strength always gives out eventually. It was never meant to carry a heavy burden for decades. I am not asking you to simply try harder today. You worked faithfully on the completely wrong layer. You were trying to force a locked window while the main door stood wide open behind you. Let me describe exactly where you are standing right now. You are standing right in front of the door, but you are not reaching your hand out to turn the heavy brass handle anymore. You have completely stopped expecting anything wonderful to happen. When someone calls you with incredibly good news, your chest immediately tightens. You do not celebrate with them. You instantly start calculating exactly how this good thing is going to fall apart. You run through every worst-case scenario before the short conversation even ends. You do not dare to smile until you hold the absolute proof in your own hands. You have a very polite name for this heavy reaction. You call it being extremely realistic. You tell yourself that you have finally grown up and learned how the world works. You think you are just protecting your family from another terrible letdown. You believe this numb feeling is actually spiritual maturity. Beloved, that is not realism, and it is certainly not wisdom. You are calling a defensive wall a very good virtue, but a wall is still just a massive wall. It keeps the danger out, but it also keeps the bright sunlight out. Here is the true mechanism running underneath your anxious thoughts. After enough seasons of hoping and hurting, your fragile mind learns a dark trick. It learns to actively block joy in order to prevent future pain. It tells you that expecting nothing is the absolute safest way to live. But a heart that expects nothing also receives absolutely nothing. It is a heavy splint you have worn far past its expiration date. I am naming this so you can permanently drop it today. This is the guarded hope. It feels exactly like a comfortable shield, but it is actually a heavy iron cage. You built it out of pure survival instinct, and now you are trapped inside your own protection. Now look closely at your past few years with me. You have deeply punished yourself for losing your strong faith. You thought your spirit was permanently broken because you could not feel joy. You were never broken. You were simply wounded. Every time you pushed a joyful thought away, you were just a terrified child trying to avoid a burning fire. You were frantically protecting a deep wound that nobody else ever bothered to tend. You did not lose your ability to deeply believe. You just buried it safely under a mountain of heavy armor, I want you to do one tiny thing for me today. When a small piece of good news arrives this afternoon, do not immediately crush it. Let the fragile hope hang in the air for just 10 seconds. Do not quickly remind yourself of what might possibly go wrong tomorrow. Let the warm light actually touch your skin. 10 seconds of unprotected joy will absolutely terrify your anxious mind, but the heavy armor cannot survive the bright daylight. Just let the light inside. You have carried the heavy shield for so incredibly long, you do not even know what your bare hands look like anymore. The solid ground under you is heavily shifting right now. Once you finally see this defensive pattern, you cannot unsee it. And everything that comes after this very moment is built directly on top of it. Do not stop walking. The massive knot is finally coming loose. Now I will show you what was tied up inside it all along. The long season of hiding in the dark is permanently over. You are stepping out of the familiar shadows today. I want to know if you are ready to leave the comfortable cage behind. Which person are you today? Are you the one who stays hidden behind the wall, or the one who steps out into the light? Tell me your decision. Type "I step away from the familiar" below in the comments. Write it proudly. Claim your absolute freedom from the heavy armor you have dragged around for decades. You have taken the heavy armor off. You have stepped away from the familiar door. And now, you are standing in the middle of a completely new season because you chose to trust my voice. But the enemy is incredibly angry that you finally see the true light. He knows he can no longer control you with those old fears. So he immediately changes his toxic tactic. He sends a loud noise to confuse you. He tells you that you are making a massive mistake. He whispers that you are completely unqualified to walk this path. And he violently reminds you of every single time you failed in the past. You hear the loud noise and you freeze. You look around and wonder if you misunderstood my voice. You seriously think about running back to the safe shadows. Do not run back. The loud noise of the world is designed to sound exactly like my absence. It has never once been my absence. You are simply stepping into unfamiliar territory. The sudden quiet you feel is not abandonment. It is the wide open space where you are finally allowed to grow, and I am walking right beside you in this strange new place. You must keep moving forward. Before I hand you the absolute final piece, I need you to think of someone else. There is one person whose face came to your mind while I was speaking today. They are standing in front of their own closed door right now. They feel completely forgotten by heaven. Send this message to them today. Write one simple sentence telling them exactly why you thought of them, because that small action will break their heavy chains. You have waited so incredibly long for the door to open. I told you that the delay was a protective shield, and I promised that the painful waiting forged your unbreakable spirit. All of that is entirely true. But there is one thing I have not given you yet. I have been holding it back on purpose because you were not ready to carry it. It has a specific name. I call it the last key. You will not receive it in the part of this message that sounds like an ending. You will receive it after the quiet blessing. Do not leave when it sounds like I am closing. That is precisely where it lives. I have kept it hidden until your hands were strong enough to hold it firmly without dropping it. Everything I have said until now was preparation. This is the thing itself. Lift your head right now. What comes next is not mere information, but it is a holy moment that will shift your perspective forever. I have been walking you toward one specific truth this entire time. We have finally arrived at the heavy gates. Breathe deeply. Let the shallow worries of your day completely fall away. You look at the massive wall in front of you. You look at your own bruised hands, and you think you are supposed to keep knocking until the wood completely shatters. You think your painful effort will somehow impress me. I am about to tell you the final truth about that wall. It is not what you think it is. The entire situation is about to shift dramatically. You have been measuring your progress by how far the wood has moved. It has not moved a single inch, so you naturally concluded that your life is a total failure. You firmly believed you were permanently stalled, but you have been reading the wrong signs. You have been looking at the barrier instead of looking at the solid ground beneath your feet. The ground is fully prepared. I am standing right beside you. I am not asking you to lift your tired fist again. I am asking you to completely stop knocking. Stop hitting the barrier that I am actively holding in place. The noise of your own knocking is keeping you from hearing my clear voice. I need you to drop your hands to your sides right now. You are not late. You are not less. You are not a forgotten exception to my deep faithfulness. I am bringing you to the very edge of the ultimate revelation. The heavy veil is lifting right now. You are about to see exactly what I have been building behind that barrier. Prepare your heart to receive the absolute truth. I did not bring you this far to leave you empty. The long season of bitter confusion is ending today. The frustrating things you thought were punishments are about to be revealed as incredible mercies. Stand still and let me show you the room. The door you desperately begged for was always a massive distraction, and the real entrance is finally opening wide. You stand in the hallway staring at the thick wood. You look at the closed door and immediately evaluate your own worth. You calculate every small mistake you made last year, fully believing your tiny errors permanently sealed this heavy barrier. You think you are simply not good enough to be let inside. I will stop that toxic lie right now. It was never your fault. You did not fail a test of faith. You have quietly convinced yourself that your prayers were just not loud enough. You assumed you were missing a secret spiritual formula that everyone else somehow figured out. That is a deeply painful conclusion drawn from a tired mind. I have heard every single word you whispered in the dark. You are not uniquely flawed, and you have simply misunderstood the entire architecture of the hallway because you were too busy looking at the floor. You have been absolutely exhausted from pounding on a closed door for years, but you have been reading the entire situation completely wrong. I am going to reveal the absolute truth today, and you will never unsee it. It was a held wall, not a locked door. You were aggressively pushing against a solid barrier that was never designed to swing open. And I held that wall firmly in place because I needed to protect you from a dangerous situation that you were not ready to face. If that wall had suddenly collapsed under your heavy fists, you would have walked straight into a barren field. I call this massive protection the held wall. It feels exactly like a terrible punishment when you are standing on the outside. But it is an incredible mercy. I was actively shielding your future from a premature arrival. The timing was entirely wrong for what you desperately requested. Every time you cried in frustration, I was securing your foundation. Every time you bruised your hands on the wood, I was preparing a much better room. You thought your life was permanently stalled and completely ruined. You were never stalled. You were being deeply formed in the silence. The painful waiting season was not a cruel joke. It was the exact workshop where your immense strength was carefully built over many years. Hear me where you make your deepest decisions. You are exhausted from pounding on a closed door. It was a held wall, not a locked door, and today you will step into the actual room I prepared. The long season of begging for scraps is officially over. The waiting is completely finished. The massive delay is entirely done. Lift your head, drop your hands. Stop knocking. Let me say it once without a single image so that there is absolutely nothing left to interpret. You have spent years demanding access to a situation that was completely wrong for your life. Because it was wrong, I actively blocked it. Because I blocked it, you incorrectly concluded that you were the core problem. You were never the problem. The request was simply too small. That is the entire unvarnished truth. You have carried a heavy responsibility that was never assigned to you. You measured your spiritual value by whether you could force an impossible situation to finally work. Because the situation was impossible, you could never make it work. I am removing that heavy burden from your tired shoulders today. You are permanently released from that unfair expectation. And you can finally breathe deeply, because you do not have to prove your worth to me or anyone else ever again. Hear this urgent warning before you take another step. There is a massive cost to spending one more year staring at that same blank wall. If you turn around and go back to your old begging, you will completely miss the true entrance. I am telling you what is moving toward you, and I am telling you tonight, I will not force you to walk into the new room. If you stubbornly choose the familiar hallway of rejection, I will let you sit there, but you will sit there without my active blessing. You will watch the real opportunity pass you by, and you will walk into the next season utterly blind. Your stubborn loyalty to a dead dream will cost you the living reality. Do not let your fear of the unknown steal your massive inheritance. I am standing between you and that tragic outcome right now. I am actively blocking your retreat. I refuse to let you waste another decade knocking on solid stone. This is exactly how I have been reaching you. Turning away teaches me you would rather not be reached. Do not make me quieter. I am fiercely fighting for your ultimate freedom today, and I need you to fight alongside me instead of running away. I spoke loudly just now because you had stopped listening to your own weary body. You are listening now, so I can finally lower my voice. Come closer to me. The exhausting era of forcing things to happen is over. You do not have to fight the heavy wood anymore. You only need to turn around and see the wide open space waiting for you. Your hands are bruised and your spirit is incredibly tired. That is entirely understandable after such a long battle. I am bringing you deep comfort, but I am also bringing you clear direction. The wall has served its protective purpose, and you do not need it anymore. Take a deep breath and let the old frustration completely dissolve. You are about to step into the brilliant light. I need you to hear exactly what is at stake today. There is a massive cost to spending one more year staring at that blank wall. It is not a cost anyone will ever invoice you for. It is paid very quietly in the beautiful things you permanently stop expecting. You will slowly stop looking for the warm light. You will get dangerously comfortable in the cold draft of the empty corridor. You will build a tiny life in a place that was only meant to be a temporary transition. Do not choose the familiar pain over the unfamiliar blessing. I am heavily warning you about a deeply destructive habit. You have learned how to survive outside the room, and survival has unfortunately become your entire identity. I did not create you just to barely survive in a dark and lonely hallway. I created you to completely thrive inside the house. The long season of waiting is completely exhausted. You must let the old frustration die today. Now come here, sit down with me. I want to say the rest of this to you quietly. That was the loudest I will be with you today. Everything after it is much closer and infinitely softer. I raised my voice because you had stopped listening to your own tired spirit. You are finally listening now, so I can lower my voice. Put your tired shoulders down, my child. The commanding is completely finished. I said it that way so you would hear it clearly. I will say the rest of it so you can deeply rest in it. Remember the heavy wall I named for you earlier. Come and see what an ordinary evening looks like when you are no longer standing in front of it. Come with me into the lovely season ahead. You walk into a room you have never stood in before. The afternoon light is incredibly warm and soft on your face. You sit down in a chair that feels perfectly made for you. Your feet rest firmly on the solid ground, and your hands are completely empty of all the old anxiety. Notice what is absolutely not in that room. The heavy tension in your jaw is permanently gone. The constant urge to prove your own worth is nowhere to be found. You do not stare at a closed door and wonder if you are an unwanted outcast. The desperate need to force things to happen has completely evaporated. The room is utterly peaceful, and the deep peace does not frighten you at all. That beautiful room is not a distant fantasy. It is not a fragile dream waiting to be shattered by harsh reality. She already exists. She is standing on the other side of one thing you are still gripping tightly. You mistakenly believe you must earn your way inside through endless suffering. The distance between you and that beautiful room is not time or random luck. It is permission. And permission is something you give to yourself. There is one thing I have not given you yet. I told you there was a last key, and I promised you would receive it after the quiet part. I kept it back until your hands were empty enough to firmly hold it. You thought the key was a secret prayer or a massive physical effort. The last key is your willingness to let go of the heavy brass handle. The handle you have been pulling on does not even lock. The door was always ready to open inward. Because you stood faithfully before a door that would not move, I am actively moving you today. I am taking you out of the hallway of endless waiting and bringing you directly into the room of immense inheritance. You will no longer measure my deep love by how fast a wooden door opens. You will no longer translate yourself into something much smaller so that people can easily accept you. You will finally step into the wide space I specifically built for you. The long teaching is finished, my child. What is left is simply between the two of us. Let the heavy words rest now. I want to speak to you the way a loving father speaks at the end of a very long day. You came in here carrying a massive burden you had stopped noticing. You are not walking out with it tonight. What you are walking out with is much lighter and infinitely better. You finally know that the long waiting had my protective hands all over it. Somebody in your family line will live completely differently because of what you refused to pass down. You chose to heal instead of bleeding on the people around you. The bitter cycle of constant rejection permanently stops with you today. It ends exactly here, in this very moment. I am with you in the quiet kitchen when the house is asleep. I am with you in the living room when you watch the sun go down. I have always been with you through every single silent year. The frustrating door behind you is permanently closed. The beautiful room ahead is wide open. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. Everything I came to say has been said. Now I need you to do one final thing before you turn off this message. Do not leave without taking this small step of obedience. This is how you seal the absolute truth in your heart forever. Type "I step into the room prepared for me" below in the comments. Let this place know you stayed to the very end. You are no longer a spectator standing in the cold hallway. You are an invited guest walking into the warmth. I read what my beloved children write. Go in complete peace.